They laughed when he shuffled up to the curb with a dented toolbox and a cardboard sign. Rain had painted the city gray. People hurried past other people's lives. "Can I fix it for food?" he asked, voice small and steady. A man in a pressed suit laughed the loudest and tossed a crumpled bill. The laughter wrapped around him like a cheap coat. He'd come from a world the suit couldn't imagine. A childhood track with rusting bleachers and nights under fluorescent lights, where the air smelled of gasoline and hope. Now those nights were folded into a cardboard placard and a toolbox that rattled like a nervous heart. He fixed whatever strangers would let him touch, a loose bike chain, a sputtering mower, a wobbly cafe chair, and accepted sandwiches and coins. He became a presence at corners where the city shed its pretense. Word spread not in headlines, but in gratitude. A florist who couldn't open a delivery van at dawn found him crouched under the engine, humming as if tuning a piano. A barista who'd watched him fix a grinder left him muffins and a grin. People started leaving notes. "Thanks, saved us." He was called Fix-It, a title that fit like duct tape over something raw. Beneath the cap and calloused fingers was another life. A taped photograph fell from his pocket one windy day. A boy in a racing helmet, eyes fierce. He'd been a racing prodigy. He'd eaten chewed-up asphalt and champagne dreams and learned the language of engines before he could read. Championships had been carved into his bones. Then a wet track, a miscalculated pass, a crash that rewrote everything. Surgeries and paperwork followed. Sponsors left. He tried to return, but the world moved faster than mercy. So he tuned engines in alleys and parking lots, trading trophies for wrenches. There was a rhythm to surviving with a toolbox, a rhythm not unlike lap times. One evening a car with a cracked bumper and a racing team logo idled nearby. Two men in crisp jackets argued inside and sneered when he offered help. "Can you fix it for food?" he asked quiet. They laughed. He worked anyway. His hands moved steady and precise. The work spoke in the sigh of an engine finding balance. He remembered the first time he smelled burning rubber and felt his pulse sink with an engine. He had been a kid then, staying late at a community garage, sweeping up parts and learning the language of pistons from an old mechanic who treated engines like people with secrets. "Listen to it," the old man said. The lessons were patience and attention. They fit him like gloves. The crash changed the grammar of his life. It came on a rain-black night, a misjudged pass, a moment of too fast ambition. One instant the world bent into speed and color. The next it was twisted metal and hospital fluorescence. Recovery was a slow ledger of small victories. Learning to walk in a new way, moving a hand that wouldn't obey, relearning coordination. Sponsors folded. The public moved on. He translated loss into work. Tools became prayer. Wrenches tightened bolts and loosened shame. He fixed engines in alleys, in parking lots, at the backs of bodegas. He repaired a florist's van at dawn, a coffee grinder on a holiday rush, a grandmother's lawn mower before a barbecue. People repaid him with sandwiches and thanks and sometimes nothing. Those small moments stitched him together. A local mechanic recognized him and a rumor moved. A trailer manager who liked second chances called people who had once lived in the sport. Someone remembered. They invited him back to test under the open sky, where he'd learned to read corners with breath and hands. Back on the track, nothing worked like champagne or cameras. It worked like practice and humility, like an old song rediscovered. He climbed into the cockpit with a visor that had history and felt the car speak through vibrations and timing. Laps became reconnaissance. Each pass calibrated something in his bones. Fans wanted spectacle. He wanted to listen. The media tried to bottle his story. They wanted a headline about a homeless man turned racing hero, but he refused dramatics and preferred steady work. Teaching a teenager to change a tire, keeping a mechanic's tab open, giving a spare part to someone who needed it. When the man who'd laughed first approached him outside the garage, his apology was a murmur. Words felt thin. What mattered was work. He handed the man a wrench and showed him how to change a spark plug. In shared focus, the awkwardness eased. He opened a small garage, tune-ups, repairs, second chances. It wasn't charity. It was a place where people earned help with dignity. He taught young mechanics how to listen to engines and older ones how to listen to the next generation. The garage became a community anchor, part clinic, part classroom, sanctuary. Years later, standing at the edge of practice and watching hopeful drivers sweep through a turn he'd once feared, he felt a quiet peace. He didn't seek the podium every weekend. Real work had always been slow mending. He would race when he wanted, teach when he could, and fix things that needed fixing. Every time a child asked, "Can I fix it for food?" he'd smile and hand over a toolbox. Food fed a belly, work fed pride. The cardboard sign vanished one spring, replaced by a brass plate above the door. People still walked past the corner where he once stood, but now they saw hands at work behind a window, and sometimes they stopped. The city kept humming, indifferent and kind, and when it laughed, its laughter had a softer edge. He had reclaimed a piece of a life that was always his, and he taught others that being seen whole is sometimes the quietest miracle. Neighbors sometimes brought coffee and stories. Old rivals brought tools. Once a little plaque was mounted by the door in the name of a kid who'd learned to weld and later found steady work. The plaque read nothing flashy, only his name and the words, "Second Chances." It was enough. People came often,